Today, we're aligning radical accountability with Tuckman's stages of growth because forming, storming, norming, and performing may happen on their own, but a locked on leader doesn't just ride that turbulence. They light their afterburners so they can push their team through to the stages faster and reach peak performance sooner. So let's dive in and make sure your leadership is on target. Now, Bruce Tuckman famously created this stages of team development. And as I mentioned in the opening, they are, for those of you who don't know or aren't familiar with it, forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning is the last one. We're going to skip adjourning for obvious reasons. That's the easiest of them all. And what I want to do today is take a look at what our strategic objectives are at each stage. Because if we don't know what the objective is, we don't know how to get through it. And we need to get through each stage quickly in order to reach performing, which is obviously where we want to live. We want our team to be firing on all cylinders all the time. And so let's talk about this. So the first stage is forming. Now, forming is, as the name implies, when a group or team gets together for the first time. And if you think about what it's like when a team forms, we're all trying to feel each other out. We may have specific roles within the team. We may not, depending on how it's formed. In other words, some teams get together and they say, you're going to be responsible for operations, you're going to be marketing, you're going to be sales. Others, just a group of people say, we are going to work on this project. So the forming stage is feeling each other out. We want to set the boundaries here. And the idea here is that we need to meet both the physiological and safety needs of people. Well, what I'm talking about here is, of course, Abraham Maslow's famed hierarchy of needs. So yes, we are now taking two famed psychologists and putting their works together. What Maslow has basically said is that in order for people to be self-actualized, meaning doing the things that they're born to do, love to do, that there are certain needs that have to be met in a somewhat sequential order. And the first of those is physiological needs. Now, we're going to really not spend any time on that because when we hire people, and I'm assuming we're in a business environment, we hire people, we basically meet those physiological needs. We give them the ability to put food and water on the table so they can survive. All of these, by the way, are survival needs. Our safety needs come second. We want to make sure we feel secure. If we don't feel secure in what we're doing, what we do is we hunker down and we protect ourselves because, we could get injured. Now, that injury in the old days would have been physical injury, but even in the workplace, psychological injury, we get made fun of, we get, whatever happens, we get psychologically shut down, and now we're not going to get fully engaged. We're not going to be able to contribute at our best, right? And you've seen it. It's like, some people call it the whack-a-mole syndrome. Those people, they stick their head up, they get beat on their head. Oh, that's a stupid idea. They put their head back down. They never stick their head up again, which means they're not going to bring any innovation to the team. And for a team to perform at its best, to be at that performing stage, you need innovation because you need to iterate and get better and better and better. Without innovation, that doesn't happen. So we tend to feel each other out. So as a leader, as a locked-on leader working with a newly formed team, what we really want to do here is establish some boundaries. We want to, first of all, what is our mission? Make sure we're all clear in what is the purpose of the team. What does success look like? And everyone has to be crystal clear, and everyone needs to buy into this. Right? And then what are the rules we're going to operate within? What's acceptable behavior? What's not acceptable behavior? And it could be something, and there is no, by the way, wrong answer, but there could be a wrong answer for that group. And what I mean by that is, let's take some high performers like special operators in the US military. They're not as concerned about each other's feelings. They can deal with that. They want quick, actionable truth. So frequently there can be some pushback and yelling and screaming could occur. There's other environments where that won't fly, where people will shut down. So you got to set the right tone for the people you're dealing with. Right? Give them guidelines. And at the end of the day, what we're doing is just creating a stable environment. And the sooner we do that, so everyone knows what the rules are, then everyone knows within the boundaries that they have to operate. And that puts us into the storming phase. Because now what's going to happen is you're going to get pushback from those rules. You're going to get jockeying for position. Human beings are pack animals. And we are constantly looking for where we sit in the pecking order. And of course, the way you move up the pecking order is you have to pull somebody down, right? So the beta will attack the alpha. And if the alpha doesn't hold their position, the beta assumes the alpha. And so as the leader, you need to be sensitive to this. And I don't mean allow it to happen per se, but it's going to happen. We want to make sure it's done in a healthy way so everyone understands. And one really good way to do this, of course, is to clarify decision-making authority, who's responsible for what sort of decisions. For example, you might say, when it comes to the marketing message, John's in charge of that. However, operations comes under operations. So the marketing message has to accurately reflect what operations is going to provide, right? Because we can't have two conflicting messages. If marketing is saying, here's our promise, but operations isn't able to fulfill that promise, well, that doesn't work for anybody, right? So who's responsible for what? So marketing may be responsible for a marketing message, but operations says, no, that's not the way we're going to operate. And then you as the leader need to be able to manage that and be able to really facilitate when there's a conflict like that. So you have healthy conflict resolution. That's the other thing about storming, right? What you're dealing with here is conflict. And what we want to do is migrate unhealthy conflict, butting heads, into healthy conflict where you actually come to an agreement and you collaborate. That's healthy conflict. Conflict is not bad. It can be bad, but it's not inherently bad. And so we want to make sure at this stage that we are facilitating healthy resolution. We're encouraging open communication. We want to make sure that everyone is being heard and is hearing, right? And as we do that, then people are going to start to operate at a normal level. Things are going to start to move along. Things are going to smooth out. Engineers call it laminar flow, where everything just starts smoothing out and things start operating. And now we want to start encouraging accountability, because we're in now what our strategic objective at this point is the esteem needs. So at storming, we're really we're meeting a need for love and belonging. We're saying you're all valued in the group. And then we're starting into the esteem needs. This is where we're now saying, and here's the value you bring to the group. That comes into full force in the norming. As you move into norming, now you really want to establish, yes, everybody is valuable. And this is really important. Everybody on your team is valuable, even the lowest paid individual. Otherwise, if they're not performing a valuable task, why are they there? So if you think the janitor, person cleaning up after everybody, isn't doing a valuable task, think again. Otherwise, you're going to have to do it, or somebody else who's perhaps higher paid is going to have to do it, or the place is going to get messy, right? Everybody has a critical task, and you need to recognize that in order to get from norming to performing, right? So now we want to start encouraging peer accountability, right? So this is where we want people to take ownership. We want them to say, okay, here's what I did, here's where I messed up, or here's what I did well. Both of those, hopefully, or instead of messed up, perhaps it's here's the lessons I've learned so I can do it better next time. Now, as a leader, this is where using laser guided praise, focusing on the specific acts and actions for specific people, as close to that as possible, so you can reinforce the behaviors that you want repeated, as well as drill counseling, where you're taking people aside to talk to them privately about the behaviors that are not serving anybody and helping them replace those behaviors with healthier, better behaviors. So you want to reward and recognize excellence, as well as maintain your high standards. In other words, reinforce those boundaries you set back at the forming stage. And by doing that, you're actually going to enable autonomy. You're going to empower people. You're going to let people make their decisions, make their mistakes, or have their learning opportunities, and then make sure they see the lesson, if it's that, or reinforce with praise when they do things correctly. And the more you do that, and the more of that is done, so on a daily basis, looking for opportunities to praise people, then the higher the team is going to perform. And everybody, you'll see at different levels, but everybody will start ratcheting up. It becomes a sort of a competition, but a healthy competition. And a rising tide raises all ships. And you're going to then move into the performing stage, which is the penultimate, the next to last stage. But obviously, we don't want to adjourn this team unless it's for a very specific project, which could happen. But if it's a team that you're keeping forever, right? Now, the last piece in this is to understand the moment you add somebody new, you go all the way back to forming. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to take as long to get through. The team can, within a day, can go through forming, storming, norming, and performing. But when you add somebody new, or if somebody leaves, as soon as the makeup of that team changes by one person, you're all the way back to forming again. So it's your job as a locked on leader, stay on top of this, recognize where you are, and then use the right tactics to achieve the correct mission and strategic objectives to move you as quickly as possible into performing. If you like this, go ahead, hit subscribe. Feel free to forward this to anybody you like, and we'll see you next time on Radical Accountability.